Well, thank you for attending our December meeting right before Christmas, the big time of the year. Tough to have a meeting at this time of the year, but we're still having one. If you would please stand and join me for allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lord, we thank you for this day. Thank you for blessing us to be able to attend, to learn something new, to be able to improve ourselves so that we are ready to help others, to help other people that we are responsible for, and those that we visit and help them with their programs. Thank you for giving us the education we need and at the time we need in order to help those others. Thank you for blessing the food that we're about to receive, for the nourishment of our bodies, that will continue to give us strength to do what you want us to do. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Well, thank you for joining us today. Today we have Robert Gales from ATN Montgomery area. He's going to do a presentation today. I forgot to ask you what the presentation title was, so I just called it the workplace injuries. Okay.
All right, again, I'm Ronnie Daniels. I work with Alabama Technology Network, or ATN. And today we'll talk to you about something that's very passionate to me, mainly because I've had a little background in it and because I've experienced it in the workplace. So I'm going to go over some things with you. I'm going to be brief on some of them because we're going to try to keep this to around 30 minutes or so. It normally takes me a little over an hour to go over this. So we'll jump right in here and talk about some of it. So we're going to actually look at direct costs and indirect costs. And most of you, I know you're safety guys, you're familiar with that already. But I'm going to try to, based on some of my experience in the past, throw a few little additional tidbits in there for you. And just to kind of let you know a little bit about my past before I got into safety, I started out as a workers' comp claims adjuster for an insurance company. So I paid the lost time benefits, dealt with attorneys, doctors, the whole 9 yards. I have to tell you this, that was the most stressful job I've ever had. The phone rang off the hook from the time we started business hours to the time we shut down. It was a very, very stressful job. I'm glad to be out of it. I don't think I'd be here today if I was still in that occupation, man. That's how bad it was. If you think that safety can get stressful, try being a claims adjuster. It's pretty hard. So I moved from that into safety for some insurance companies, and that was a pretty good gig because you get to go to all these different companies that we insure and help them with safety. So that was pretty good. And then eventually moved in as a safety person for one of the Hyundai suppliers around the Montgomery area, which I gathered more experience to help with this presentation here, from being on the side of trying to entice or persuade management why we need to do things we need to do in safety. Because, you know, a lot of times with different cultures, they don't see things the way we do. Just because you tell them something is a regulation or a law or that we could get in trouble for it doesn't always mean that to them they don't take it that serious. So I went through little battles with that. I'll share some of that with you. So we're going to talk about direct and indirect costs, and we're actually going to kind of dive a little bit deeper into workers' comp insurance because I worked in that for a number of years, and I want to show you a few examples of that impact that it can have. And the last thing we're going to do is talk about who pays the ultimate price for workplace injuries. And I know you know the answer to that one already. I'll share a few little things about workers' comp benefits that will shed some insight on that for you. So I'm not going to read all these to you, but looking at some of the potential effects of employees, you got an employee's life is potentially altered, temporary, or permanent. Y'all know this. We only got one body we got to live with on this earth. And I'll be dog, we don't need to be sacrificing our body or any part of our body for a job. And if any of y'all in here, I think about this because I've been through it myself. If you've ever had an old injury, they don't ever really typically, you know, the medical community can kind of patch you back together and get you good and you feel good, but does it come back to haunt you? Yeah, it never really quite goes away. And the older you get, it's like, oh yeah, I remember this injury here. Yep, yeah, I had it in my 20s, and now it's done come back. So we have to live with this body, and we need to try to take care of it. And we don't want them to get hurt on the job. All right, looking at another one, reduced morale. I have experienced that at the place I was telling you that I worked. where people are getting hurt, other people start getting upset about it. And that was an unfortunate reality. I'm gonna man up and tell you, I fought a hard battle there in safety, but if you have people getting hurt on the job, it causes reduced morale and can cause problems in hiring and job retention. What about overtime costs or workload reassignment? If you've got somebody that's really good at a job and they know this machine inside and out and they operate it, they can tell when the sound of the machine changes a little bit, oh, I got something going wrong with it. And then that person gets hurt and is no longer there. You just lost a valuable person that was very efficient, made good quality parts, and now they're gone. And y'all know when you bring in somebody new, you've got that learning curve. But first, you got to back up and you got to recruit and then get somebody. You may have 2 or 3 you have to hire before you get a good one. So you got a lot of lost production, loss in quality, and it can be a whirlwind of trouble. So how about this one? Time spent by administrators, supervisors, and many others who handle the claim or the accident. You're a safety person and you work at a facility, something bad happens to somebody, no matter what you had planned that day, maybe you were checking fire extinguishers or you were ordering safety supplies or having meetings, all that stops right there, doesn't it? You have to put your game face on and go out there and deal with the injury and make sure that person gets taken care of. That could take an hour, 30 minutes, or it could take days, couldn't it? Got to do an accident investigation, all that. Already talked about some of the others. All right, so let's look at direct and indirect costs. And y'all have seen this before, but we're going to kind of dive a little bit more into it. So direct costs are defined as medical expenses, lost wages, and other expenses directly associated with the injured employee's workers' comp claim. And the way I think about that is usually when it comes to direct costs, they are things that we're going to typically get a bill for. If they had to take an ambulance ride and they got hurt, we're going to get a bill for that. They had to be airlifted, we're going to get a bill for that. They have to go to the doctor, they have to have surgery, they're going to have a bill. It doesn't mean they're all going to have an invoice associated with it, but most when we consider direct costs, they're going to be something tied directly to that person's treatment or care. Then we have indirect costs, and that really pretty much is everything that's not direct costs. And you see it's listed there, all other costs of an accident. And sometimes it's called the uninsured cost. You may hear that sometimes. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's an uninsured cost, but it's just another term that's used to describe it. Here are some examples of direct costs. And I've added a few in based on my claims experience because I've done a lot of research on this. I've looked at what some of the common things that we see are listed as direct costs. The ones on the far left under medical, those where I just described a moment ago. Then we get into indemnity benefits, and they can come in different forms. Somebody could be temporary out of work, so that's called temporary total disability. That's where they get paid 66 2/3 of their compensation. You can also, in worst case scenarios, have death benefits. And by the way, I'm pretty familiar with Alabama work comp law, so anything I start talking about benefits, it's only for the state of Alabama because each state has their own benefit laws, and I'm not familiar with them, only Alabama. Legal expenses, settlements, and legal expenses. Most all of us in here know how astronomical legal fees can be. Attorneys charge, I don't know what they charge now, a couple $100 an hour. They have to write a memo or they have to file something with the court because you're getting sued because of an injury. They're going to bill you 0.5 hour, $100. And they just add that price tag out. Now, when I worked in claims, I saw that quite a bit. So you'd see those running totals for everything they do, they're going to charge for. Investigations, mileage in the state of Alabama. If an employee gets hurt on the job and so they have to go to physical therapy appointments or medical treatment and all that, then they're entitled to be paid mileage for those visits. A lot of people don't know that, and I don't know that insurance companies specifically let them know that. Some do, some probably don't, but they are entitled to mileage. And then surveillance. I'm going to talk just a minute about that one. Surveillance would be where an insurance company suspects that the employee is faking it. And y'all, I know we see a lot of legitimate things happen in the state of Alabama, people getting hurt, but there are some scammers too. And if I had time, I'd share a lot more on stories with you about, but there are people that try to make a living off workers' comp. And they have an injury that they know of, they've been dealing with, and they carry it from one employer to the other. And as soon as they get there and get their feet wet, they fake an injury. or and file for a claim for it, and then they get an attorney, the whole 9 yards. I know of a couple, particularly when I was a claims adjuster. I know their names because they actually did leave one of our company we insured, went to work for another company, and filed a claim for the same injury they had at the prior employer. Now, when they found out we were the insurance company for both companies, he went away. He knew he had been busted because we had caught him on surveillance. All right, so about surveillance, it's usually only used when they have strong suspicion that somebody is faking it. And, a lot of times you get false reports. We saw him playing softball, blah, blah, blah. But in really suspicious cases, and I'll give you an example. One, we had a guy, he was a high wage earner, which means his temporary total disability for being out of work was going to be high. And we suspected this guy was fraudulent. Something gave us some suspicious about him. His job was really not that hard. And so we put surveillance on him. And some of the surveillance companies are very advanced, but the one thing about surveillance, it adds to the price of the claim whether they get surveillance, good footage or not of the person doing something wrong. So it doesn't matter. It's unlike an attorney that's going to bill you for doing something, they're going to bill you. If they have to sit in that van and just watch for hours, you're going to pay for 2 hours worth of footage and nothing. So this guy, we suspected he was a malingerer, and we put surveillance on him and got him walking up to his house. Supposedly had a back injury. And he's come walking up to his house, and his kids are out there playing in the yard, and they are kicking a ball. And they kicked the ball over his way. And here I am, I'm watching the footage, and I'm thinking, oh, before it gets to the good part, I'm like, we got him now, because the ball came right to him. And he kicked that ball, and I said, we got him. And then the next part of the footage was he grabbed his back, started walking in the house. So it was like, he really did have a hurt back, so wasted money on that. Moving on, indemnity benefits like claims administration expenses. Some companies will hire an insurance company because they're familiar with the work comp law and the benefits, and then they'll pay them an administrative fee. So anytime you have an accident, you're going to pay for that administrative fee. All right, so here's an example. Just look at some direct costs. I'll read this to you. A machine operator trips over a box of parts left by a machine worker in his area. As a result, the machine operator strains his knee. He is taken to the emergency room by an office staff member. And let's say, this has happened on third shift, the company doctor's not open, so he had to go to the emergency room. We'll put down $1,000 for the emergency room. And then we need him to follow up with the company doctor. So the operator is placed off work for 3 days until a follow-up appointment at the company doctor. At his follow-up visit, he is ordered to stay off work, and physical therapy is prescribed for 3 visits a week for 2 weeks. So here we got a physician visit where he gets prescribed physical therapy, then 2 weeks of temporary total disability. That's a 66 2/3 of their average weekly wage at $20 an hour. There's $13.86. Moving on, we're going to pay their mileage for going to the physical therapy appointments. And then there's the physical therapy visits, $150 a visit. And then they go back to the company doctor, and the doctor says, all right, you're good, you're released to full duty. Heard that term before. Let me back up. So the total there, $3,669. So in just a minute, we're going to look at how these impact a broader thing of financial aspects for a company, because trust me, whatever an insurance company pays, you're going to pay for it one way or another. It's kind of like automobile insurance. If you're high risk, 16 years old, the premiums are higher. Same thing goes for occupations in workers' comp. Roofer premium is higher than an attorney or administrative worker. It kind of works the same way. Another thing too is you getting car wrecks, your insurance is going to go up. You start having accidents, your workers' comp insurance is going to go up. All right, so here's a long list of indirect costs, and I don't have time to go over all of these. Just point out a few of them to you. Some of them there you see, like OSHA citations, if it's something that warrants them coming in there, amputation or fatality, something like that, it gets them in there. That's going to add to the price tag. Increase in insurance premium, which we'll cover here in just a minute. Equipment damage could happen. You may have to use emergency supplies. And you see the long list of things on the right there, like time down for repairs. And with indirect costs, we don't often put a price tag on them. You know, at the time, if I'm working at my desk, a safety guy, and somebody gets hurt in the job, and I have to go out there and help tend to it and do an accident investigation, do a report for upper management, all that, it may spend hours, but we don't typically sit down and say, okay, I make this much per hour, here's how much time I spend on that. So those are those indirect costs. We could probably sit down and put a pen and paper to it and put a price tag to it, but most of the time we don't do that. Now, direct costs versus indirect costs, y'all probably have heard this before. A lot of times the direct cost, and this has been shown by proven data of studies, is 2 to 3 times higher than the direct cost. And this is that iceberg thing that kind of illustrates that, where, you know, we see those price tag things from an accident where somebody gets hurt, and then all under the surface there, the things we don't see or typically put a price tag to, the dollar figures are just much, much higher. I'm going to briefly talk about loss ratio in case any of you ever see this, because some workers' comp insurance companies will mail a loss run, they call it, to their insureds. Anybody here seen this before? All right, so you've seen it. Some insurance companies do and some don't, but basically it's just showing the amount that's paid out in accidents, or we're going to call losses since we're talking in the insurance world here, divided by the premium that you pay for the year. And there's 2 different loss ratios they use. One of them is going to give an instantaneous snapshot of how much have we paid out, plus we anticipate paying out for the claims accidents that you have, divided by the premium you paid to date. So the top example there, we're saying, all right, 6 months into the year, we've had $40,000 in accidents, which doesn't take a whole lot to get there. And then we're going to divide it by how much premium you have paid to date. So you only paid a half year's worth of premium, you paid $50,000. That's showing a loss ratio of 80%. Now that would be a number that insurance company's not going to be happy about. Moving on down to the next one, this is going to look at, all right, if we're at $40,000 in accidents and we're going to pay $100,000 that year, if we don't have any more accidents the rest of this year and the claims don't go up, nothing happens, our loss ratio is going to be 40%. So that means we got to be good the rest of the year to wind up with a 40%. Now, when somebody gets hurt on the job and you file a claim with your workers' comp carrier, one of the adjuster's job responsibilities is to reserve money for how much they think that accident's going to cost. And as soon as they can get a prognosis from a doctor and they know, you know, if it's a knee surgery, how many weeks the person's typically going to be out, they will reserve all that money in a fund. They'll just put it in there. So sometimes they may use it all, which is going to be counted on your experience model, which we'll talk about in a minute. Sometimes they make the person miraculously does well. They didn't need the money, they'll pull it out. The reason why they do that is because the money that they set aside for those accidents are used to calculate your experience modification rating, which we're going to talk about. Y'all probably are familiar with already, but that's what we're going to talk about next. Now, before we get into experience mod rating, OSHA has a very cool tool. You know, y'all have been on OSHA's website before, probably, especially for government-run organizations, probably one of the best websites you can go to. If you can't find something by clicking around on there, you can get in the browser and type safety pays, this is where I'm at now. Safety pays, probably the easiest way to find it. And OSHA actually has a tool to help you calculate direct and indirect costs and what additional sales is your organization going to have to recover from that accident or those accidents. So here, I'm going to pick an example for you in just a second. But before we do that, I wanted to tell you, you know, the numbers, if you use that calculator on their website, it's not hocus pocus numbers. It's backed up by hard research. Here's where the research comes from. The direct cost comes from the National Council of Compensation on Insurance. They are an organization that sets rates for workers' comp premiums. So all losses are reported to them. They're almost like the BLS of the workers' comp. They collect all this data. That's how they determine, okay, we're getting, for example, for a while there, we had law enforcement, a lot of law enforcement's getting shot and, you know, assaulted and all that. So all that data is collected for law enforcement, and the actuaries for the NCCI says, all right, this is becoming more of a hazardous occupation, and they will determine what rate is going to be needed to pay for that occupation. So it works that way for all occupations that are covered under workers' comp. So they have the actual numbers that insurance companies are submitting to them. So when we look up an accident here in just a minute, you'll see hard numbers based on true data. The indirect cost that we're going to use on the OSHA's website is used by by a study done by Stanford University. So again, hard research put into that to come up with it. Now here's a screenshot from the safety page on OSHA's website. And I have added on the right there, if you'll see, 2 strain injuries. And it may be hard for some of you to see here. This is estimated direct cost. This is estimated indirect cost. And so I chose 2 strain injuries, and it's telling me, based on the NCCI data, that 2 strain injuries are $64,000. You know, it's quite a bit of money. The indirect cost is saying it's $70,000, total cost $134,000. And the neat thing about this one, if you tell on this website what your profit margin is, which I chose 3% as an example here, it's going to tell you what additional sales your organization is going to have to make up, or additional sales you're going to have to recover those 2 strain injuries. In this case here, it's telling us sales to cover total cost, direct and indirect costs, $4,483 in additional sales that we need at a 3% profit margin to cover 2 strain injuries. That adds up really, really quickly. All right, so let's look at this one that here on the indirect cost. You see I have it highlighted there, increase in insurance premium. A lot of people are familiar with experience mod ratings. They've heard the term used. It goes by many different names. It seems like in the safety world, most people call it experience mod rating or experience modification rating. It's also called experience mod. Some folks in the insurance world call it mod factor. And before I forget, before we go any further, let me wait on that, because I think I need to tell you a little bit more before we get into that. So basically, an experience mod rating is an actuarial formula, and I'm going to try to explain this probably the best way that I understand it, which doesn't mean the best way you understand it, so I hope I don't confuse you. Basically, it's an actuarial formula that's going to look at the insured people with your organization. Let's say you've got 200 plant workers. They may fall under one category for one rate. You've got 20 engineers. They're going to be paying a different rate because it's less hazardous. Then you got office people. They're going to be paying a much lower rate for workers' comp because it's low hazard. They're going to look at the accidents at your organization for those occupations compared to nationwide. That's what this formula does. Because the NCCI knows certain occupations are expected to have this amount of accidents. I mean, that's the reality of it. I know we all have the belief that all accidents are preventable, you know, for the most part. But in this case, they know from past history that this occupation experiences this rate of accidents. So they're going to compare your organization, your losses for those occupations that you have insured against all the rest of them. If your organization is higher, let's say you're not as safe, you don't have good safety policies, you don't have good safety culture, you're having a bad run there with accidents, it's going to compare those accidents and those occupations to what they see around the nation. And that formula is going to adjust your experience mod, which I haven't really given you the complete definition of yet, to either debit or credit you. It's either going to give you a discount or it's not. Now, it's not supposed to be looked at in terms of it will penalize you, but in reality, you are going to pay a penalty. If your experience mod goes up, you're going to pay more, and I'll show you that example. All right, so let's say we have an annual premium that we're paying in workers' comp for $100,000, and our experience modification rating is 1.3. It's all it's going to do is multiply 100,000 times 1.3. It's going to be $130,000. Every organization that, let's say you start a new company, when you buy workers' comp insurance, your experience mod rating is automatically going to be a 1. So you can see what it's going to do in math there. It's going to take 100,000, multiply it by 1. But after you've been in business for a while, and either you have a good safety record or you don't, that actuarial formula is going to calculate every year and see, are y'all been good or have you not? And it's going to adjust and change your premium just like this. And I've got a good example here to show you. And by the way, this is what I was going to tell you a second ago, but I thought I'd hold off on telling you until now. The experience mod rating becomes part of a company's DNA. You know, like if you're paying high insurance premiums somewhere, let's say for your car or your home, and you say, well, I don't like them, they're too high, I'm going to go somewhere else. Well, does your driving record follow you when you go get car insurance? It does. So does your loss history, your accidents history. So one of the first things a new insurance company is going to say, they're going to contact the old insurance company and say, send me the experience mod rating form. If you like, it's going to follow you. You can't start over with a 1. All right, this looks a little complicated, but I'm going to try to go through it, make it where it makes some sense. Let's look at some hypothetical numbers, typically hypothetical, over 3 renewal cycles of our workers' comp insurance. If you'll see there, let's say we're renewing in 2023. The experience mod formula is going to look at every year when you renew, it's going to look at 3 years. In that case there, you see it says 2023. But notice it's not looking at 2022, it's looking at 2019, 2020, and 2021. The reason it's not going to look at 2022 is because the insurance world looks at it as those probably have people with active accidents or claims that are still seeking treatment. So it holds those. So every year when you renew, it's going to drop a year, pick up a year, but it won't look at the most recent year. So 2023, let's say you've already had some accidents in years past, your experience mod is 1.18. It's going to add 18,000 to your premium. To save time, I'll go on to the bottom line. Let's say in 2024, you're still having accidents. It's going to drop a year and pick up a year of your loss history, your accident history, looking at dollars. And your experience mod goes to 1.21. It's going to add another 21,000. And we get on over here to 2025. You're still having accidents. Your experience mods are 1.25. 3 years there, you just spent an additional $64,000. So and it just keeps going. So it takes a while before you start. If you've had a bad run there where things haven't been so good, it doesn't just fall off and you go back to a 1 or less than a 1. And by the way, I have seen some pretty low experience mod ratings, and I've seen some high ones. One of the lowest ones I've seen was like a 0.55. So that's telling you they're getting about a 50% discount on the workers' comp premium just from a good safety record. I've seen as high as 2.55. So they're paying like 150% more. Now, most insurance companies with a 2.55, they would cancel you. But where I work, the particular company I work for, we didn't cancel any of our members. We just took the premium. And then looking at, we've talked, and I've went through this rather quickly. I hope it makes sense to you. But, we've talked about, particularly on the workers' comp side, how it can add to your bottom line. And, it's something that sticks with you for a long time once it starts. And I hope that nothing else, if you don't have access to some of this data where you work, that you'll go inquire about it and say, hey, let me pull the workers' comp information. Know what your experience mod rating is. But you see the question I have there, safety, workplace safety, pay me now or pay me later. And I know I'm preaching to the choir with y'all. Because if you don't do it on the front end, you're going to pay dearly. And I'm not talking about just in money, everything else too. You will pay dearly on the long end. It just happens. And I'd love to share some stories with you about fighting battles. Like, I'll be brief. I'll share one with you. The one foreign company I work for, I may have mentioned this when I first started talking, not familiar with OSHA, not familiar with federal regulations or state regulations. I actually had to use this information to convince them to buy PPE. And I know that's a sad reality and we live in, but I'm having to show them that this $2 pair of gloves can save $2,000 in third-degree burns and wound care for a person, plus them being on the line working. And I actually had to make that argument to show them why it's cheaper to pay on the front end and do it this way. It gave me good work experience and stories to share, but y'all know, you work in safety, you know, glad I don't work there anymore. You had to make an argument for PPE, you know you're working in the wrong place. But they didn't look at, they could not see the example that we looked at there, the direct costs. Like I actually could pull the medical treatment up and all and show them the bills for the wound care and all that and show them, look, here's how much this costs. Here's how much we had to pay them when they were out of work. And here's a pair of gloves, it's $2 that'll protect them from that. All they could see was, we're about to spend $2 on a pair of gloves. It's hard to believe that we deal with people that way, but that's, their mindset was that way. It was a very difficult challenge trying to convince them to go the right direction. So, all right, so who pays it's not the employer that pays the ultimate price, it's the employee. And I've kind of talked about that already. I'm gonna be a little brief here because I got a video I want to show you. But looking at, I've given some examples here of how an injured employee's life can be changed. Now, I will tell you based on, I'm not an attorney, but I'll tell you based on my understanding of workers' comp law. And if you take the time to look through how the benefits are paid, let me just tell you this. I don't know any other way to tell you this. It's crude. It's crude. It attempts to put dollar figures to body parts. And I've given you some examples there. For the loss of a thumb, 62 weeks. So the Alabama law says loss of a thumb is a little over a year's pay. Now, that is a valuable digit there, isn't it? Now, it doesn't mean it's written in stone that that's all they're going to get. That's why we have attorneys and that's why we have courts. But this is what the code says, 62 weeks compensation. And I've thrown in some others as well. For the loss of an arm, 222 weeks. Again, that's not written in stone, but that's what the law says. There are other arguments that attorneys can make. Sometimes insurance will concede that they know that it's just losing an arm is not what they call a scheduled injury. If they can show that it affects the body as a whole, it becomes a body as a whole injury and the price tag goes up. So I don't want to get too much into that, but there are, that's why we have court systems and attorneys. Index finger, 43 weeks, great toe, 32 weeks, and any other toe other than the great toe, 11 weeks compensation. So it's pretty crude. All right, so y'all seen this before, but I truly believe in it. We have a duty to send employees home each day in the condition we hired them. Don't contribute to any problems with them. I'm going to show you a video, but before we do, anybody any questions about direct costs or indirect costs or experience mod ratings? All right, so since I am not a funny guy, y'all have already determined that. I have not got a single laugh since I've been standing up here. I've got a pretty humorous video to show you. It's one of my favorite safety videos. And, thinking about how we develop a safety culture, and we have our goals as safety professionals to keep people safe. We also like, hey, we got to keep the bottom line of the company, where we can be, stay profitable at the same time. And then we have a safety culture that's built where we get them on board and they're all, hey, I want to, everybody looks out for each other. Y'all familiar with that? And they're all on board about things. But sometimes that can be taken a little bit too far, can it? Let's say incentive programs. Y'all heard that's a delicate little fine line that we have to walk. If we want to incentivize no lost time accidents, it's a fine line we have to walk. It's good to have the safety culture go with it, but sometimes it can cross the line. Now, I have a humorous video I'm going to show you. It does have fake blood and guts. So if you're squeamish, it is truly fake blood and guts, but I do have to give this warning just in case. I'll go ahead and start this video, or Vincent will, and that will end us for our topic. You want me to do it?
Yeah, go to the next page.
Hope you enjoyed that video as much as I do. I've seen it 50 times and it's still funny. Any questions for me? All right, thank you, everybody. Thanks for your time. Anybody watching on Zoom, thanks for attending.
We appreciate you doing the presentation. We'd like to offer you the coveted ASSP this dishwasher safe, microwave safe.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
Any new guests that showed up today want to introduce themselves? Would you like to introduce yourself today? Want to introduce yourself to everybody here? Let you know who you're with and so forth?
Hey, next, BSC, and hospital, and this started this, just already worked for a fire security company for 16 years doing inspections and service management. Heard a lot about safety in the mod and stuff like that, so it's real.
Oh, yeah.
Well, thanks for joining us today. There we go. Okay, we got some events coming up. Hopefully this will happen. PDC with CEUs for those who have certifications. February 5th will be an electrical course from Dr. David Carpenter. We're going to charge $50 to cover the cost of the food. Any additional leftover funds will go to our scholarship fund. We're offering a couple college scholarships this year, one to Auburn University and one to Jacksonville State. I have some information on what it'll entail in the next slide, I think. Auburn will, their ASSP student group, we finally got a hold of, and they're want to be proactive finally after a couple of years. So we're going to do a mini expo with the Montgomery, Opelika, Auburn section, the Alabama chapter, and the Auburn student section of ASSP. There'll be a mini expo at the university. Looks like it's going to be $5 to attend. That's because the university will charge $2 to $3 to park your car. The rest of the money will go towards the luncheon that'll be provided. They're going to provide some PDC breakout sessions on student research or faculty research. There's also going to be a session on workplace violence, which we already scheduled. There'll be a tour of some of the research laboratories as well, and that'll be April 3rd. The regional ASSP Region 4 conference is going to be over in Atlanta, Georgia this year. The national one will be out in Anaheim, California. So there is a local conference you can go to versus flying out to California for one. And this will be the PDC that we're going to do on electrical safety. This is everything that's going to be covered in the course, how to investigate electrical accident, how microgrid systems and digital electricity are changing our view of electrical safety. They'll cover a lot of that. So that'll be what's covered. It'll be here at AGC on February 5th of next year. Upcoming chapter meetings. We got the OSHA administrator and the assistant administrator to okay meeting and greeting the employers in the state of Alabama. That'll be on January 15th. It will not be here. It'll be at the Trade Academy, which is across from Carlisle's Barbecue. If you know where Carlisle's Barbecue is, it's directly across the street down on 6th Avenue. So it'll be there. Registration is still open. I think we'll cut off at 200. I don't know how many the building holds, but we'll stop it at 200. You can always come by Zoom. February 20th, we're going to be at the Jacksonville State University. We have our annual student and Alabama chapter meeting together. It's always a big event. The students love it. March 13th or 20th has been delayed. We'll do that later on in the year. I'll find another session and to be covered at that point. April 3rd is when the Auburn University event is going to be with their chapter down, or their section down there with the student section. And then April 17th, we're doing our members recognition luncheon. We have a SPY award we'll be giving out. Tom Robinson with AGC won it this year. So he's our SPY person. We have a lifetime service award to John Placey. He won that. He's been with ASSP for 350 years, something like that. He served on all types of positions in ASSP, from president to secretary to he was our treasurer for 150 years. So he's been a long time member with. Once in a while, he'll come to our meetings. So he's been in ASSP. I think this year will be his 52nd year in ASSP.
The OSHA event will be down on 3500 6th Avenue South. Best way to find it, Carlisle's Barbecue right across the street. Thank you very much for AGC. They're going to sponsor the event for lunch. So thank you, AGC, for coming forward and basically sponsoring our lunch. April event will be on the 17th of April. That's the third Friday. We thank all our long standing members. Basically, anybody who's had 10 years of ASSP membership or longer, we thank you with a certificate of appreciation. Obviously, our SPY member, I already said was Tom Robinson. We'll give him a SPY award. John Placey will get our Lifetime Service Award. And then Auburn and Jacksonville State University scholarship winners will be determined. They're going to get back to me in January on who the one student each will receive a scholarship of $1,500 each or more, depending on how much is left from the February event. Some training opportunities from the University of Alabama Safe State Program. Really nothing going on the rest of this month. So in January, a couple courses coming up is Safety and Health for Silica and Construction. It's a virtual on the 26th of January. And then on the, I think it's the 16th of January, there's a job hazards analysis. Both of them are virtual. Nothing going on at UAP's Deep South Center for Occupational Safety Health right now. They won't start up until February, and they'll have an initial audiometric test and then a recertification for audiometric course. Both are in February. Let's see. CEUs, I'm still getting emails out for our September and November CEUs. We went through ASSP. They send me a link and a validation code. Then you have to go to ASSP's website and to that location here, put in that code, and then they'll load you your certificate, and then you got to load it to BCFP if you have a certification that you need to recert, and this is the 0.1 credit you need. So it's a little more difficult than UAB or the University of Alabama just sending us you personally a certificate with a 0.1 CEUs. So I don't think we're going to use ASP much, but we did use them for twice. And I am sending out those emails with this code so you can load those 0.2 CEU credits to your file. And January 15th is our next meeting. Yeah, I do have a question mark by it. There's a lot of people registering for it. So I wonder what the fire code is for the building. How many can we actually put in the building? We may at the last minute have to change it. We're pushing 105 to 110 right now. We're going to stop it at 200. I hope we can get 200 in the building. That doesn't mean we'll invite more, just need a larger building. We may have to change it at the last minute and move it to somewhere that can handle a larger group. But right now we're at the Academy Craft Training Center down in Birmingham, and that's what we'll see you for January 15th. Any questions, any comments? Anybody have any information?
We did have to change the registration. We had it capped off, so we've changed it so that the cap is now 200 instead of 100. So I'll make sure we include that in our newsletter, that they tried to register but couldn't, and they try again.
Seems like it hit yesterday because I had a group every day, 5 or 6 links coming in saying, hey, I registered. Nothing yesterday, nothing today. So we found that out from somebody who tried to register. So we're back up and running again. So if you did try to register, please try again. Any other information from anybody? ATN have anything coming up? Tuscaloosa, West Alabama have another meeting coming up at all?
Yeah. Lake change. Topic is still kind of a little bit up there, although I'm really interested in putting together maybe a best practices panel on the topic of incident entry investigation, so best practices on that type of thing. But what I am actually kind of doing also is looking to kind of see who might be some good best practices panel participants for that.
Ronnie, what are you doing in January?
There's a number of slippery slopes out there with regard to its investigation. I can tell you that you know, in the work that we do with SafeSafe, a lot of the incident investigations, accident investigations, go down to buildings. And so I think it's probably, I think it's probably a pretty good topic to have people who are sort of really on their game when it comes to doing that type of thing, you know, providing, you know, advice and guidance to, you know, to other members. So that's one topic that I'm really interested in, and if I can pull it all together, that's what I'm excited for, like that.
Okay. Well, everybody have a nice Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, safe one out there. A lot of crazy people out there getting that last minute, whatever that popular gift is that they have two in the store and everybody's fighting over it. Which I like to go to Starbucks, drink coffee and watch those people fight over that gift. That, you know, means nothing to me. But enjoy yourself and have a great holiday season. And a safe one too. Safe travels back to Montgomery, Huntsville, and wherever you go.